So let's look at the server side of the World Wide Web. So as we have seen, we have hyperlinks and URLs, uniform resource locators, that we use to navigate and look up information on the World Wide Web and the Internet. So these are very simple and very powerful concepts. So let's look at some definitions. So a hyperlink is a reference to some data that the reader can directly follow either by clicking on it or hovering over it. And this hyperlink just points to a document which is on a specific position in the Internet. Hypertext is just text that contains hyperlinks. And a user that is following hyperlinks when looking at hypertext is said to navigate or browse the Internet. So if a hyperlink is bound to a portion of a document, it's called an anchor hyperlink. And the text that is called, the text to which it refers is called anchor text. Let's look at an example here on this slide. We see here some anchor hyperlink, and the anchor text is Wikipedia. So if we click on this, we go to a Wikipedia URL. A URL, the Uniform Resource Locator, is a reference to a resource that specifies the location of a resource on a computer network. And this is the mechanism for retrieving it. So actually a URL is a specific type of Uniform Resource Identifier. Many people use these terms interchangeably. Then also a URL occurs most commonly to reference web pages like HTTP or HTTPS. But you can also use them for file transfer, FTP, like we've seen before, or email when the word is mailed to, database access like JDBC, and many other applications. So now that we have text with links, hypertext, and we have universal directions, URLs, uniform resource locators that we can use to find this text, we just need a couple of more things to make the Internet complete. Which is we need a protocol to transfer these documents over IP networks and a way to enrich the text that enables us, for example, to format it or include images, videos, or any other objects. So for these two things we have the HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, that is for transferring the documents over networks, and we have XML for formatting the documents and including images, videos, and etc. So let's look at HTTP. HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is an application protocol for distributed, collaborative, hypermedia information systems. And this protocol is actually the foundation of data communication of the World Wide Web. It's an insecure protocol and it transmits hypertext in plain text with no encryption whatsoever. So if we want to add encryption and we want to make it more secure, we have something like HTTPS, which is HTTP Secure, which was developed to improve security, similar to SSL and TLS protocols that we've seen before for encryption. So to enrich the hypertext documents and give them structure, special markup languages were created that are called HTML. It's an acronym that stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's the standard markup language that was used to create most of the web pages today, as now in version 5. As the name says, Hypertext Markup Language, it's not a programming language. It's a markup language that is used to mark up text. And the way it works is that we just wrap text in tags. We enclose them in tags, and these tags have different meanings. For example, we have a tag that says div, and this means that we can structure in different sections which are called paragraph. There is tags h, which we can use to specify headers. There's an a tag, which we can, for example, see here on the slide, which we can use to make these anchors, where we can make the references to other web pages. And as you can see on the slide, there's always a beginning tag and an end tag. So here we begin specifying the anchor, and here we end specifying the anchor. And here, for example, you see an end specification of the div tag. So To control all these World Wide Web technologies and make sure that they are standardized such that we're all use the same standards, there is the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, and this is the main international standards organization for the World Wide Web. So let's look at some more definitions to make sure that everybody's talking about the same thing. A web page is a single document which is suitable for the World Wide Web. A web browser is the client software application that presents web pages to user. A website is a set of related web pages. It's typically served from a single web domain. And a web server is the computer system that accepts and processes World Wide Web requests. A web server can refer to a whole computer system attending requests or specifically to the software that accepts and attends them. Sometimes people interchange terms like website and web server, and well, we have to be careful with that because it's not completely correct, as a big website can be hosted and attended by several servers. And then they share networking load serving the same content to different users. And so they perform different functions depending on different user requests. So a website and a web server is not always exactly the same. So we have seen web pages now that contain hypertext and images, videos and other objects. And these objects and hypertext documents are stored in servers called web servers, whose primary function is to store them and deliver the web pages to clients that ask for them, following the client-server model that you see here on the slide. A user requests for some content, the server sends it, if he can find it, and if there's some error, the client gets the error. So for a static web page, a web server with this model is enough. We just have HTTP or an HTTP protocol that responds sending the content that the user has asked for. And if the server is unable, you get an error message or so. However, we have seen that the World Wide Web is not so static anymore. Pages are getting more and more dynamic. For example, there's lots of information stored in databases, and sometimes we want to just request part of these databases. We want to query databases online and get dynamic information sent to us on our web browser. So it's getting more and more dynamic. So to generate an HTML page from data stored in a database, for example, when the request arrives, the server should do some server-side scripting. It should install a programming environment and execute a script that actually does what the user has asked for, retrieves the specific data and construct the web page that the user wants to see dynamically. So languages that are generally used for server-side scripting are, as we can see here a little bit on the slide, PHP, Python, Ruby on Rails, Perl or SPNet. And these can actually add the dynamic aspects of the websites that we see nowadays more and more.